when I was in elementary school, there were 34 students in a class, and only 2 students had a working mom at that time, which was like around 2005. And I remember I cried a lot because my mother didn't come to like open classes where parents can come and see their children doing activities. But I came to understand her as I came to women's university, because I mean, even though you're getting married or you have children, you should be able to have a career and pursue studying.
Hello, and welcome to the Korea Deconstructed podcast. This is a conversation with Jeon Seoyeon. It was fascinating to me. I've known her for quite a few years, and I learned even more about her during this conversation. We talked about education, feminism, social minorities, the importance of kindness and the meaning of life. During this conversation, Seoyeon quotes Mark Fisher, brings to mind ideas from Kwame Anthony Appiah. She swears and she moves me at times with her compassion and kindness for other people, which seems selfless and genuine. As I continue to do these conversations with various people in and around Korea, I thank you for your continued support. It's not always easy to have these conversations. They can be quite difficult, but yet to everybody that's clicked, that's liked, that's shared, I thank you. To the people supporting me on Patreon, I wanted to give this message to say, and a special thank you to you as well. Doing these conversations now in person takes a lot more of my time, takes a lot more of the effort, but I'm happy to keep doing them. I'm happy to keep sharing them. So thank you for being part of it. Thank you for listening to Korea Deconstructed. And thank you now to Jeon Seoyeon. Seoyeon.
Yeah.
Shall we start with education? Because that's where I know you from. And this week is Suneung.
Yeah, right.
Right? And some people think Korean education is the best thing in the world. Some people think it's the worst thing in the world. But you seem to crush it.
I do?
Yeah, you do. You seem to be a grade A and A plus and everything like that.
Yeah.
But you've lived Korean education.
Yes.
So what's your take on Korean education?
So actually, I took KSAT 3 times.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I thought I was a failure then, because I mean it takes a lot of money, maybe like 3,000만 won for one SAT. So I used a lot of money and time, and but it was hard because not all students are fit for standardized tests. So you pick from 5 answer choices and there's only one answer. But after I came to university, I kind of found that I'm a very self-driven and self-motivated person. So I really try hard with the things that I'm interested in rather than things that I'm forced to do. So I think that's why I failed the KSAT 2 times, because it wasn't just right for me. And yeah, I've seen like so many students do like take KSAT for 5 times and 6 times, and they eventually go to good prestigious schools, but I haven't heard after. What happens after KSAT is over, because it's not the end of the world. I mean, life goes on, and we have to just pursue career more than university. So
I get the impression that you're doing better at university than you were at high school with your KSATs and Suneung. What's it like to take it again, though? Because it's such a stressful thing, and to do it and then go, because I guess you didn't fail it. You just didn't get the score that you wanted or something, right? And there's always that, no, I must do better. So what's that decision to do it again? Does that come, I don't know, it's a bit personal. Does that come from your parents? Does that come from you? Or
No, well, actually my parents said that university isn't the end of your life. But I was at that time I was so devastated that I failed again. And I said that, oh, that's because you went to good universities. You have PhD and master's degree. And so I really wanted to go to a good school. And I actually didn't have a goal. I didn't know what I wanted to study, what I wanted to be. I just wanted to go to a good school. And because of that, I think I failed the KSAT exam because I didn't have a set goal. And in order to get admission to in-Seoul universities, you have to be at least top 15%. But I was bad at these tests, and I was losing so much weight. And so I think grades at high school does not actually lead to success in afterlife in university.
So physically and mentally, because I've never taken Suneung, and when I did tests around the same time, we had to write essays in the UK when I did A levels and things like that. But you said you're losing a lot of weight, so that Suneung thing is physically and mentally that's quite hard on you.
Yeah, so the thing about Suneung is that you have to either take the KSAT test and you only go to university using this test score, or you use this 학생부 종합전형, which is kind of more, you have interviews and you have to write essays. And I actually didn't have very good high school grades. So 학생부 종합전형, that was just out of my choice. So I had to put all my effort in KSAT 100%. And that is really, really stressful because you only have that one day. And that test starts at 9, I think, 8:20-ish, and it ends at 5 o'clock. So it's really physically draining, and at the same time it's mentally draining because tests could be really difficult. And that all decides my 1 year, that one test. So that's the really stressful part.
You seem to be doing much better at university now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's...
What's the difference? Why do you succeed so well at university now you're there? Because I guess I just feel sorry that some people might never get there, or they might, those Suneungs, it might be too much and they don't take it again. But now you're there, you seem to be just doing so well.
Yeah, so as I said, I'm a very self-motivated person. So I chose this department because I wanted to study it. And as a result, I really tried hard to get better grades and, participate in a lot of different design competitions and volunteer. So that's one of the reasons why I succeed in university better. And at high school, I really hated to study, and my parents said that, oh, you should study a little bit more. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do it because it's not fun. And I didn't like it. I just didn't like it. I don't know why, but I just didn't like it. But when I came to university, I even made time between classes, about 2 or 3 hours. And I went to the library and studied alone. And that was really, I kind of first felt joy when I was studying at university. So it was kind of different.
That's good, because now you're doing it for yourself than other people. This is a very dangerous question, I think, because we're both at Seoul Women's University. Did you get to the university you wanted? You're happy? You did it 3 times and you're what was that like?
Yeah, well, when I was taking my last KSAT in 2018, that was my last because I was accepted at 2019. Well, I went to this Jeju 종합반. So this is an academy, but it's a school. So it's you come to the academy at 7 a.m. and end at 10 p.m. and you just study all day and take lectures for all subjects covering KSAT. And I did that for 3 years. And at last, I was really good at it. And I was first in class, and I got some scholarships from that. But unfortunately, the 2019 KSAT was really difficult, especially the Korean part, which is the first part of the exam, was really difficult. So I was like mentally really shocked. So I actually didn't do very well as I thought. But I couldn't just do it one more time because it would be my fourth. And I just couldn't do that. So I picked not a school, but a department that would really fit me well. And actually, the teachers said that you're going to regret it if you go to this school, because my KSAT scores were like so much higher than this school that I'm attending. So they said that it was kind of 약간 아깝다.
Bit of a regret or something. Yeah,
they were like that. But well, I chose it, and I eventually liked it. So I can't imagine doing anything else besides what I'm doing now. So
it must be quite nice going to university and being older as well, because I've never realized that about you. Sometimes if all students are in 1 year, I imagine them to be similar ages, but if you've done it 3 times, you're like 3 years older than your peers, or has everybody done it 3 times?
Well,
but do you know what I mean by that? Because if you've done 3 years, you would be 3 years older than someone that's just going in the first time.
Yeah. So at first, when I came to university, I was like, oh, I'm so old. Like, I'm a grandma here. I was like that. But one of my friends also took it 3 times. And there are several friends that I know in my department that have taken KSAT 3 times. And there are students also who have transferred from other schools. And of course, taking it again is so common in Korea. So like and also when they come to university, students kind of like stop school for a few years and experience different things and come back. So I think the age really gets all mixed up. So after a few months, I didn't even realize that I was that old in the department.
You're not that old, I can definitely tell you that. One more on this, Suneung, I think, is that you said 2019 was a hard year.
Yeah.
So is there like this thing where I'm 2019, that's terrible. Some years are easier than others or harder than others? Or?
Yeah, I think definitely, because there are times when KSAT is called 불수능, or it's called 물수능.
불수능, like fire suneung?
Yeah, and 물수능 is like it's like water. Everyone gets good grades.
Okay.
Yeah, so the problem about getting 물수능 is that everyone is getting good grades. So if I make a mistake, I'm just going to take it again next year. I will. And if it's 불수능, then I'm so mentally drained, and I would most likely, fail the other subjects as well, the leading subjects.
I never knew that. 불수능 and 수능 and 물수능. Nice, that's nice. At the end, I'm definitely going to ask you for some advice about surviving that, because I know a couple of young people who are going to be, especially K Park, who sometimes listens to this, doing that, Suneung, and they'll probably be going through all the stress that you've been through. You want to go to the States now?
Yeah.
Like jumping towards the future. Like when you're thinking about education, you're like, let's go.
Yeah.
Do you imagine that it will be different? Is there a reason? I was looking at these statistics that say it looks at the education levels of Korean women, and then their employment is low, and it gives this impression that lots of people get educated here and then go abroad. And there's this idea we need to go to the next step. Do you feel that you need to go abroad to go to the next step? Or?
Well, I think a lot of people think like that, especially they think that they have to go to the United States. But I think it would differ on what field you are in. So For example, landscape architecture doesn't have a very long history in South Korea. As you can see, the environment is really unsuitable for landscape architecture, I'd say. Whereas in European nations or the United States, there has been hundreds and thousands of years of history of gardens and all that stuff. So.
Shall we then talk about gardens and stuff?
Oh.
Because this is your major, and
Yeah.
I come from a place with gardens. My hometown is called the Garden of England. That's what Kent is called, and so lots of. You've been there? You lived there?
Yeah, and no, I think I only heard about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but you've spent some time in England,
Yeah.
and there is a difference in terms of greenery and scenery.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to understand like gugak and Korean music. It took me a long time. So what I mean by this, Seoyeon, is that can you make me see the beauty of Korean greenery and plants and scenery, or is it not there? Because I struggle to see it, maybe because I have different eyes.
Yeah, I personally think it's not just there. I've been to a landscape architecture firm for summer internship, and what I've seen there is that the people there are really trying to put green infrastructure and put more greenery into urban areas, especially in Seoul. So people are still working on that, and I think Seoul is actually a very densely planned city with almost 20% of the whole population living in it. So yeah. So in the UK, I used to live in Leeds, and we used to live in a flat, and we lived in the first floor, and there was this huge window, and I would just open the window, and there was this tiny little grass area, and in the winter I would throw peanuts outside, and then squirrels would come, and I would plant little tomatoes on the flower bed. So yeah, I think as UK has definitely some lots of greenery and lot of horizontal or flat areas where greenery can be put in. But whereas on the other hand in Korea, I think these days what people are trying to do is utilize green infrastructure, such as green walls or green roofs, and put it in a vertical form because it's so densely planned. So that's one of the things that I aim to study at grad school. So because people are just biophilic, and they have this nature of inborn nature of just loving nature and greenery. And if you think about Instagram cafes, Instagram viral cafes, they put bark in grounds, and they have huge plants, and that's popular. So if we think why, I think that's the proof that people are no longer happy with skyscrapers and penthouses built with concrete. Yeah.
They're nice for a while, but they don't do it long term. Your email address suddenly makes sense to me now.
No.
By the way, which
Yeah.
has Leeds in it, doesn't it? That was your Leeds Jeon.
Yeah.
Your Leeds days. I don't know if this is a stereotype or if you think it differently. So tell me your opinion. But we have grass at our university, and you're there as well, but people don't go and sit on it. And I get this impression that in England, if there's grass, people will go out there, they'll take beer or guitars, and they'll just sit on it.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't even have mats down, but in Korea there's they'll cordon off the grass, so you're not allowed to sit on that, or the grass is kind of dangerous or weak or.
Yeah. So I remember when I was attending school at England. It was mandatory to go outside at lunchtime, and we were just forced outside to go into the grass areas, and I would just sit there and even lie down, and that was what I went through as a young girl. But when I came to Korea, when I sat down in the grass, everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, you're going to get this disease." I don't know what's I don't know what's that called in England, but English, but it's like some bug bites you and then your blood turns into something. I don't know. So I was like so shocked because, I mean, isn't the grass meant to sit down and, yeah.
It's our friend, yeah, but over here there's this idea that it's dangerous or it's bad to sit on it, I think,
Yeah.
isn't there?
Yeah, I think so. So everyone talks about that disease to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. What about the plants in Korea? Seoyeon, I know nothing about plants and stuff,
Yeah.
right? So you probably know that. But what about the plants? Can you say anything about Korean fauna, flora, like plants, trees? Does it have some good stuff here, or?
I think I don't know, because I don't see anything special, because maybe that's because I've been here for such a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, I just see like pine trees and like ginkgo trees, but to me they're just kind of boring. So yeah, I'm actually more interested in, like exotic plants such as like ornamental grass, which is like frequently used in Piet Adolf's garden. He's a very famous like Netherlands nursery person. Yeah, but yeah.
What's ornamental oriental grass?
Yeah, ornamental grass.
Ornamental grass.
So it's like grass that you usually see in European gardens. It's usually really tall and really fluffy. Yeah, those kind of grass.
Do you have lots of plants at home? This is really interesting to me because, like, for example, if you work in McDonald's, you probably don't want to eat McDonald's. I'm not saying you want to do that, but if you do something a lot, you often don't want to do it. If you study horticulture and landscape architecture, does that mean like your place is full of plants?
No, because I don't have talent in growing plants. I tend to just kill all of them. But I recently was into this really cute calculus. Its name is calculus, and it's like I don't know, succulent plant from South Africa, and its leaves kind of sticks together, and it creates kind of a lip form in its face. So it's really cute.
What color is it? How big is it?
It's green, and it's like really the size of your like thumbnail.
Okay.
But I recently killed it.
How do you kill a plant? Do you just like play death metal music to it, shout at it or something? Is it overwatering? Not enough watering?
That's the sad part, because I don't know why it died. It just suddenly like died. So I was like, oh my gosh, it was there just a few hours ago and it died. Yeah.
There's the Korean expression like "tongson." Terrible words. I mean, I've got this big. I don't know what it is, but I've got this big plant in my living room. It's about this tall. It comes up to about my shoulders for anybody just listening. And I don't know. It's still alive. I don't know what it is, but it's still alive. I'm quite proud of that. That it's there.
Yeah. So like one thing that's interesting is that in Korean, like 풍수지리, you're not allowed to have like bigger plants than your height, because it eats up your, I don't know what's that called in English, but like your ki.
Oh, your chi, your life energy, your force or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're not allowed to do that. So I really wanted to have this like big monstera, that big leaf thing, but my grandmother said it's not going to help you, so I didn't.
Is there much of that spirituality going on, like in your life or with the plants? Because I wanted a big plant, but it would eat too much of my life force, so I didn't.
Yeah, it's just like kind of things that are superstitious, but I don't know. It's just, as a Korean and as a person who's grown by my grandmother, I think it's due to that influence. I really tend to believe those things, even though it's really unscientific.
I'm 40 and they still affect me. You know, those things that you're told as a young person, they just stick in there for some reason. Before we go to Gangwon, though, like, in terms of plants, I joked whether you kill them because you play death metal to them or something. Do you know anything about that? I mean, this is kind of your major. You might say, David, I know nothing about this, but like, if you play music to plants or if you talk to plants, do they pick up your vibes or?
They say they do, but I've heard it from our department professor that it's just bullshit.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Well, I don't know. I'll take your word for it. Yeah, very good. Well, let's talk about Gangwon-do then, because I love Gangwon-do. And for people, Gangwon-do is the province that's in both South Korea and North Korea. That makes it quite interesting. But a lot of people not familiar with Korea might know about Seoul, Busan, Jeju. Gangwon, not really that. You were raised in Gangwon-do?
Yeah. As a child, my mother still works, and I come from a double income family. So most of the time, I spent the time with my grandmother, and so we lived in Gangwon-do Hongcheon, which is like this really mountainy area, a lot of corn and potatoes. And she used to take me to like brooks to see fish, and she used to like dig 20 or 30 worms from the soil and show me that, and I would just run away. But it's all left as a really good memory, and this led me to love nature itself and even choose my major. So every summer and winter break vacation, I would go there for 1 or 2 months, and I would stay there.
It's kind of cool how those early memories shape us, or those early experiences. We don't think they would, but yeah. Are you a mountain person? Are you a stream person? Do you do the hiking as well when you're there? What also surprises me, I'm sorry to talk too much, is that like Korean people will go swimming in streams during summer, like in Gangwon-do.
Yeah.
They'll just go there and like get into their shorts and in they go.
Yeah.
Are you into that? Do you do the hiking, the streams, the mountains?
Yeah, we all, as a Korean, I think we all do that. Yeah, but what I find interesting is that people don't sit in grass, but they dive into stream water, which may be contaminated.
Yeah. It's like right by an expressway or something. Yeah.
That's odd.
Can you swim?
Yeah. So I went to school in Spain and in England, and it's at that time it was mandatory to take swimming lessons every 3 times.
Yeah.
And after I came to Korea, I went to this private elementary school, and they had a swimming pool, so I had to swim there every 3 days, every week, and I even was in the swimming club. So yeah, I've 10 years of total. Yeah.
So you can swim.
Yeah.
Nice. Because it's weird going to water parks or things here having to wear the life vests, and there's not that good swimming culture here, I don't think.
Yeah. So in Gangwon-do, there are a lot of mountains, and the brooks are really deep. So I once fell in there, and I nearly drowned, but thanks to all those swimming lessons, I survived.
Yeah, growing up, they used to make us swim in our pajamas and things like this to do all these things. But considering you've spent some time in England and Spain then, in one of your writings recently, you said that South Korean are 냄비근성, which is like a hot pot. Do you notice those differences? Because sometimes if you spend so much time in one culture, you can't really see it. You need to be out of it. Or do you see South Korea that way, having spent some time out of it?
Well, actually, it's not a very good word to portray Korean people, but I kind of agree the fact that they are very keen on trends and what's happening in the outside environment and what's going around them. And there's this 눈치 society happens so much. I think that's why some people call Koreans having 냄비 근성. But it really goes viral very fast, and it cools down really fast. And due to this, I think society actually never changes. So I have taken your digital media communication lessons. I'm taking it now, and as like Mark Fisher, I think it was Mark Fisher said that everything is done for us in the social media space, so we don't do anything. And so we feel like by talking about it or debating about it or seeing just merely news on our phones is going to change the society, whereas it's actually never going to change the society. So if we think about like recent labor issues, getting killed, or the Gangnam Station incident, or a lot of stalking crimes, I think people know it's a problem, but did it change if we think about it? I think it never changed, and it's just a cycle, and it just comes by and goes really fast.
That's kind of sad. But I do love how focused you are sometimes on oppression and social minorities, but genuinely. And that's a really cool thing, I think, because I don't see that. It doesn't matter where I am in the world, but I don't always see that. I think that's a cool thing. And the fact that you can talk about Mark Fisher while you do it is something else. Because, he's onto something, I think, when you say that we watch Squid Game or we watch Parasite and then, yes, capitalism solved. Or, if you're into what you're into, we might watch Okja or something like that. But the problems aren't solved. Just because we read these things or watch these things, they're really still there. Before we do the minorities, the oppression, the charity work, you did mention like South Korea as part of these trends is a nunchi society. There might be people out there that don't know what nunchi is. And I also get the impression that you don't look at nunchi too much.
Oh, I do?
You do? Okay, yeah, well, so I'm wrong. My nunchi is rubbish. So, can you do a nunchi 101?
101.
101, I mean, can you explain nunchi for someone that doesn't know what it is?
So it's really looking into what people may think of I'm doing. I think that's nunchi, and we kind of tend to follow what others think and just kind of hide our real feelings.
Yeah, there is a big focus on how people will perceive you, or how people will perceive us in South Korea. We do things because that's how people will see us. And sometimes if I wear something like a fashion terrorist, like a petty, people will say, you're not allowed to wear that, not because of yourself, but for other people, for other people's eyes.
Yeah. So it's like, some people say, 눈치 없어. That means, you should just like kind of act in a way that other people may think this way, so you must act carefully, like those things. And it's really critical in, especially if you are working or have a career.
Yeah, you have to act how people want you to act. You can't do what you want. That really comes into it so much, doesn't it? That nunchi. And I think some people survive the nunchi society well, and some people don't. I think different people react to it. We spoke about your grandmother a little bit, and you've also mentioned your mum being with her in Leeds and the things she's achieved. Particularly, she went to graduate school, also had children, successful career. I wonder if we might talk about Korean women, like what it means to be a woman in 2022. Are there specific challenges? Are there things that maybe people don't understand? Is the Korean woman's experience similar to other countries, or is there something unique here?
Yeah, so when I was in elementary school, there were 34 students in a class, and only 2 students had a working mom at that time, which was like around 2005. And I remember I cried a lot because my mother didn't come to like open classes where parents can come and see their children doing activities. But I came to understand her as I came to women's university, because I mean, even though you're getting married or you have children, you should be able to have a career and pursue studying. So I think in 2022, it's definitely easier to pursue a career, because it's considered odd if you do not work, even though you're a woman. So all people are working these days. But I still think that women face difficulty, especially in equal working conditions. So marriage, childbearing, and rearing is still a big problem, and I think it's really lacking support from the government or things like that. And in the early 1990s, my mother interviewed for a very famous journalism company, and they said, "You're not married. When are you getting married? How many children are you going to have?" But it still happens today. So I think those parts are like still did not change, even though, like, I don't know, 30 years have passed.
Do you think the change needs to come from laws, or does the change need to come from people's attitudes? I mean, if there was a new law put in by, I don't know, we've had all the controversy around yogabu and things like that, but is it the country needs better laws, better politicians to make the laws, or does it need people's attitudes to change to this?
Well, I think people's attitudes is really difficult to change. So I think the government should first, apply laws that could have like full-time caregiving or stuff like that, or fundings for double income families. And also it's really difficult to bear children and rear children in the Korean society now, because there are like these sampo generations where they give up things, and even there are like yukpo generations who give up dating, marriage, children, car, house, and even like social networking. So I think that's the reason why it's really difficult to have children in South Korea, and at the same time it's really lacking government supports. And also there are the gender conflicts that it's really difficult to ignore. All those stuff together is combined, and it's difficult for women to have a career and have children at the same time.
And do you feel, it might be a weird question, do you feel safe here as a woman? The reason I ask this, if I speak to international students, they might be from the States or England, Spain, France, they'll say that they feel very safe here in general. There are no sort of bad areas of Seoul or things like that, the subway. But I often wonder if that experience is different if you're a South Korean woman.
Well, generally, the environment in South Korea is really decent. I mean, there aren't guns and stuff like that, like the US. But, there are a lot of like misogynic crimes recently going on in South Korea, especially in like subway stations or like public bathrooms. That really kind of scares me. And if you go to women's public bathrooms, there's like these like small holes, and it's usually those burkas in bathrooms, so that kind of scares me. So like people stuff in tissues in order to block that. And so those like small aspects kind of gather and make me really scared sometimes.
I've heard about this tissue stuffing, and it sounds like this scary, but it also sounds like this sign of solidarity, like helping each other or something. And my niece, who we're quite close with, even when she was like 11, 12, she knew about this, and that scared me because she's still so young then. It's not even, but that really kind of freaked me out. When you talk about the having kids and the raising children, I find it funny that sometimes in class or during lectures, one of the young women will say, and she'll say it quietly like it's something dangerous, like, I want to have kids and get married. Like, if you say that, you're betraying the sisterhood or something. Do you know what I mean by that? I don't think I'm making that up, but it's, people will very proudly say, you know, I'm never getting married, I'm going to do this. But the idea that you will, maybe that's just me perceiving it wrong, but that's sometimes how I see it. It's like said as a, well, actually.
So it's like, I think it's kind of wrong to say that, oh, you're betraying our feminism movement because you're dating a Korean man. I think that's wrong because, I mean, it's just love. And the laws of feminism, I'd say, from what I've heard from my mother, is not about like dividing the two genders and making a conflict from it and, you know, crushing down the men and being equal. It's not about that. That's not what feminism was at the first place. It was just about accepting what we had and accepting our bodies and what we are going through, and asking for equality because we have different bodies and different conditions. And so if you come to like women's universities, you're really first intimidated that, oh, maybe if I put makeup on, they will just say, like, come here, and they would like say some bad words to me. But no, it's nothing like that. It's just your choice. Dating, putting makeup, well, that's all your choice. But I think it's important to just remember that, oh, what I'm doing may be related to like pink tax or those putting makeup on. I may be contributing to lookism in Korean society. I think it's just that.
It's hard when everything seems political and ideological, I guess, that when you're living through it, because I've always said it, I think I was lucky to grow up where I just took it for granted, you know, women are equal, that's it, there's no problem, here we go. Probably helps having a queen and a female prime minister and stuff, but here I guess if every decision seems like that, must be quite difficult. What do you make of your mum's role in this, like the generation that went through it previously? So you're talking about today in university and what it might feel like in university, because I read again the piece in Swedish about you and your mother by a mutual friend of ours, Emma. And this was about sort of your mum's role in the Minjung movement and this earlier thing. Do you have any take on that personal family connection of women's rights and how it's come up in Korea so quickly over the last, I don't know what, 20 years, 30 years?
Yeah, so as a child, my mother used to never buy me pink clothes. And I always wore this like cute little yellow coat, and everyone at kindergarten would say that, oh, she doesn't have a pink coat. She's always wearing that little postman-ish, like that little coat. So at that time, I was really kind of sad and, oh, why can't I put pink clothes on? But I think my mother really tried since I was a young girl not to like fix kind of gender roles or gender-related colors. So I think due to that, I've kind of been able to be more open to these things. But at the same time, as I came to women's university, the feminism that I learned from among my peers and what my mother learned at grad school and at her generation was kind of different, because what I learned today is, since social media is really big Most of the knowledge actually comes from social medias and people talking on, say, newspapers or even Twitter or Instagram. And that information may be really distorted and even very violent. So my mother was really surprised that I was kind of thinking this way. And she said I should study more theoretically rather than trying to fight people. So I think it's kind of different from my mother's generation and my generation, but I think I definitely got influence from a young age.
It's interesting. Your mother with a PhD saying study more theory. I could totally see that. But it's amazing to think, because I would suggest that women's lives have gotten better in South Korea. Now, I'm not a woman, but you can tell me if I'm wrong in this, but seeing how voting and safety in society over the last sort of 18 years, women seem to have become a lot safer, a lot better in society. But social media and that seems pretty aggressive to me. It feels like everything is a fight. Every day is like an oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. There's never it's getting a bit better, guys. It's just like, take your time. But everything feels like a OMG type moment on social media.
Yeah. So, I think that's the problem of social media, is that rather than focusing on more conversations, I think it's more focused on conflicts and those violent crimes and people fighting. So, if I say that I'm a feminist to my male friends or like the people I've dated before, they always felt uncomfortable about it. And I kind of slowly did not talk about these issues outside of school, which is making the fact more difficult, because we can't promote like fruitful conversations and grow together. So it's kind of getting more divided, and it's more difficult to solve the problem. I think that's what's going on these days.
Emma did want me to ask you about, like, around you or people around you. Her question was, do you have a future vision for your husband, kids, career, or your female friends? Probably when you're your age, you don't even think about it. But just while we're on this subject, are you like open to it, or you just mentioned you've been dating in the past?
Well, the fun fact is all of my friends, even the friends that I have who attend other schools other than women's universities, they all say that, as a woman in her like mid-20s now, they say that I'm never going to get married, I'm never going to have children, and I'm going to just pursue my career and make a lot of money and be this like cool Korea woman.
Girl boss it.
Yeah. Every single one says that. So I think it's kind of interesting and sad at the same time, because they kind of shut all opportunities down to, love. But I also kind of feel that way. Because, I mean, getting married, what I've seen my mother do that, and I kind of think that, if she didn't get married and if she didn't probably have me, maybe she would be like in a better place now, or she would make a lot of money. But every time I say that, my mother gets really sad, and she says that even though I don't have a lot of money, I would do it again. So that's kind of touching, but at the same time, it's kind of sad.
It's sad that there would have to be a choice, or it feels like a choice, I guess, between that, because you want both. I think we have enough money and opportunities in this world to allow people to have careers and children. Yeah, absolutely. And just to, I don't know, stick up for your friends in their mid-20s. Until I was 30, I felt the same. I'm like, I'm never getting married and having kids. What's going on? I'm going to stay single forever and just man boss it, I guess would be the term. I think it's just a young person thing as well. That goes like that a lot. Is there something that should happen for just before we move on from women on this? Is there like, you've voted before, you've talked about demonstrations, protests. I'm just wondering, is it like we need to have more conversations, or we need men to open up, we need to use social media less, we need more provisions or a more progressive government, or is there something that helps this go to a better place, Seoyeon?
Well, the fact that there is a women's party now shows that, I think that shows the society has changed a lot. I think just like 5 years ago, nobody knew about actually women's rights except for like scholars or intellectuals. But now everyone is interested and it's being an issue. And, you know, I kind of feel that males in the society are kind of like 눈치ing women because they might be cause conflicts. However, I think we need to gather more people in order to change the society, because I believe women's rights in Korean society is not even getting support from among women. So some women think that, oh, we don't need a women's party. And some women think that it's really necessary in today's society. So I think we still have a very long way to go, and I think we need to show more solidarity among women in order to, you know, gain more power and raise our voices in the society.
Would it be important to get solidarity with men as well? That's a very difficult question, but the reason I ask that sometimes is I always believe that it's important for us to support causes that we're not a part of, right? So if I'm not a part of, for example, the LGBT community, I should still be able to support that. And if I'm not a member of this, you know, I don't know, like the Filipino workers community, I can still support that, even though it doesn't affect me directly. And I think that helps move things forward when we can empathize. Does it also need like Korean men on board to move it forward, or?
Yeah, I definitely think that we need support from like all people, regardless of age, gender. And I've seen this like radical feminism book. I don't know what it was called. I think it was 이갈리아의 딸들. And that kind of portrays a society with only women in it and no men in it. And they call that the idea. Ideal society. But in the reality, that's not going to happen. I mean, we're going to have to learn to live with other genders and other sex. And even if we graduate, it's not going to be only girls right now. We're going to work with males and even with very old people. So I think we really need to gather people regardless of their gender.
Yeah, well said. Are you, is there a career in politics for you? Are you going to be a political person? Are you going to drive this forward and make this change? Because you seem like you have ideas and visions and study.
Well, I'm just a person who's going to do landscape architecture for probably like 40 years. So yeah, I think it's just the influence that I got from my mom.
Yeah. But it's good to see that carry on. It's good to see those influences, and I think it's an important conversation still happening here in Korea that's so real. When you say you're going to do landscape architecture, what interests me about it when I read through your work and your plans and your goals is that you want to do it as part of social work. Like you don't want to, because I have seen some people before when I've looked through their resumes or helped them with stuff and they're like, I want to make luxurious gardens in palaces and things like this. And
Yeah.
that is part of architecture and landscape.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that must be nice. But your one, from what I saw, it was like, I want to help people. That you seem to have this focus on social work. And I want to talk about that a little bit, I think, Seoyeon, because a lot of what you write and I read from you seems to be looking at helping social minorities. And I guess social minorities can mean different things to different people, like what is a social minority and who. But can we talk a little bit about what this focus is and why you want to do it and who some of these people you want to help are?
So from my point of view, as I said, I was immensely influenced by my mother, who worked for equality in workplaces. However, as I spent my childhood in Europe with my mom, I only stayed there for a couple of years, but that's the only memory that I have. Before that, in Korea, my memory is really dim because I was young. So I kind of naturally got interested in English with that, my mom's influence. So this led to me participating in MUN activities in high school and economically supporting children from developing nations. So to me, if I say social minorities, I'm usually referring to the socially and economically underprivileged. And this is not only limited to people from developing nations. Yeah. So in landscape architecture, this is like one of the things that I wrote in my essays, is that due to environmental cataclysms such as sea level rise, flooding, earthquakes, fires, those are happening in the world so often, and it's like creating massive casualties every day, seriously. And I believe that through environmental design, we can, provide better environments for people, especially when these disasters happen. Usually the people who are the first to get affected are actually the socially and economically underprivileged people. So through environmental design, I think we are able to provide safe and sustainable living areas for people regardless of their backgrounds.
Because it's the one thing that people need, isn't it? People need a house. People need to feel safe. People need somewhere where nature is not going to rip everything away from them. Is it possible? Isn't it like the world's getting really messed up with climate change and we've just got to build some big walls or go underground or go to Mars, or I'm not sure, but because I don't know about any of these things, but is what you're describing possible?
So this is like what a lot of professors are doing, using green infrastructure and water infrastructure in order to provide housing or districts that are designed to combat sea level rise. And this will be able to, prevent people from being forced to move to other places, especially for, native tribes and those people.
Will this work generally, if you do this work, will it take place outside of Korea in different countries then? I mean, because my mind immediately goes to those basement houses and things like that inside Korea, but your mind is more thinking sort of tribes and tsunamis and beaches.
Well, of course, as a Korean, I first aim to help people living in basement levels and people who are losing houses due to floodings. I mean, we see these articles so often during the summertime in Korea, typhoons attacking them. So, of course, but the fun fact is that the principal that I worked for, he said that the fun fact is that even though sea level rise and flooding is a big problem in Korea, people are only interested in casualties rather than, actually doing something and providing like flood prevention programs through design or that stuff. And people who are engaging in architecture or landscape architecture are just like merely interested in creating these beautiful gardens when actually people are dying and losing their homes. So I want to learn, those things outside from Korea and probably try to adapt them to the Korean environment.
You always seem to have such a great deal of empathy for others, like people. But the reason why it's so interesting, Seoyeon, is that if you read media, like everyone's on their smartphone, they're a smartphone zombie, they're only interested in themselves, they're just focused on gatseng or these kind of things. But that's the image. And then sometimes you talk to people, to real people in society, and they're like, no, we have to help these people, we have to do something about this. And but that doesn't always get mentioned. It's do you hear and see much of that else around you, though? I'm not trying to say you're special, but I mean, do other people, when they hear that, they go, yeah, or do your words kind of fall flat sometimes? Or
yeah, I kind of feel that no one's actually interested in social minorities as I am, but I think it's just I just come from environment where where my mother really worked for social minorities, and she still works for people who are having trouble, having like mental health issues, and she also provides like I don't know what's that called in English, but you kind of like go to the police station, and before going to court, you kind of like
you get
like,
sectioned off somehow.
Bring out like conversations in order not to like go to jail. She does that kind of thing. So, and usually the people who get arrested, I guess, are those who do not come from a very wealthy family. So it's just, I think it's just the environment that I came from.
What have you learned doing it? So you helped sponsor a young child, and then you were doing, while you were at university, and if I get it wrong you can let me know, but while you were at university you were also mentoring young Syrian girls in English that were based in Turkey. So it'd be interesting to hear about that. But what I also want to hear is, like, while everyone's wondering about their spec and I've got no time and I can't do this, you're also doing these things for other people. And I'm like, what do you get out of it? What is it? Because you don't get sort of money. So what is it, Seoyeon?
Yeah. So, well, actually doing all these volunteer activities is definitely a difficult choice, because I mean, I'm so busy doing the stuff that could actually, help me technically for my, future career and graduation. But when I see these like notices that, for example, for the Syrian refugee global service learning program, as a student who lived in a very competitive society where we can't do activities that just merely interest us, I was so eager to go to university, and do much more regarding my interests, which was helping social minorities or refugees in this case. And as I was a vice principal of MUN club at high school.
What's MUN? You said
Model United Nations.
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
All that stuff. I think it's I kind of think that volunteering is just kind of like putting out a little time for others, even though I'm busy. And from that, I kind of gain, just I kind of helped a person. Maybe I could make a good influence in one person's lives. Yeah, I think that's all I get. But that's a really big part in, the happiness of my life.
Is it ever hard to do? Like, I try to do things as well. I try to help people. But I know sometimes that if someone tells me, David, this student has some difficulties with this, or of course I stay open-minded and I try to help and I do things generously, but I still get these, oh my God, that's going to be hard, or now I need to go and help these old people, or it doesn't go, my mind doesn't immediately go, these people are beautiful and I'm so happy to help them. I'm just speaking honestly here, but I have this kind of inner, I have to not force myself to do it, but sort of tell myself sometimes that it's the right thing to do. Are you just naturally drawn toward these things? Do you have a conversation with yourself that says, Seoyeon, no, this is a good thing to do? Or because everyone's different. I'm not sure what it's like for you.
Well, I kind of just dive into it. Yeah, but the thing about, mentoring Syrian refugees and mentoring high school students who live in rural areas of South Korea, all that stuff is kind of based on what I've got, because from other people, there were a lot of people helping me. And, there were situations where I really needed help, and people would help me regardless of what I could give to them. So that was a really big part. And, when I was getting ready for grad school, when I emailed one of the professors, and he, I didn't know him, and he also didn't know me, but he really helped me with enthusiasm and said that let's have a Zoom meeting. And I was really touched by it, and I always thought that if I am in a place where I can help people out, I should always do that. Because I've gained so much help from other people.
Exactly. I'm sitting here going, yes. I agree with everything, because if you ever stop and think about how much help people have given you along the way, and just paying that back, because I was speaking to somebody about this the other day. His name is Gordon, and he was saying to me, David, sometimes he gets messages about his work and people praising him and things like that. And I said to him, that makes you feel really good, doesn't it? He's like, yeah. So I said to him, imagine then doing that to someone else. Imagine giving that back to someone else, like helping someone, even though you're busy, or helping someone go up the ladder, giving them those kind messages or things like that, because we know in our lives that help means a lot. We need that help to go up. We need just a nice message sometimes from somebody, or a nice word. And sometimes I think we get so wrapped up in ourselves that we forget to give it to other people, or we forget how good it feels to us. Like we kind of take it for granted a little bit, and it stops feeling special.
Yeah. So, I failed KSAT 3 times, but, there were always like teachers cheering for me and providing me like counseling. And I was really lucky actually to go to England and Spain at a very young age and learn English. I mean, there are a lot of people who don't even have the opportunity to go overseas for their entire lives, but I was really lucky. So I gained my English skills there. So I had the idea then, why don't I give it back to people who do not have the opportunity?
Does it make you feel comfortable with what you have? Like sometimes I'm not sure if this is the right question to ask you, but you said you'd done your SATs 3 times, but then you got here and you've got your English skills. You're lucky. So sometimes it's good to be grateful for what we have. Sometimes we always want more. It was like, I didn't get to that school. I don't have that house. I don't have that iPad. I don't have these things. sometimes I think when we work with other people or with social minorities, it makes us also grateful for what we have, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I really like the Appiah's comment saying that life's challenge is to take, possibilities that your genes and physical social environment have given you and make something meaningful out of them. So I think rather than comparing yourself with other people and trying to fit in a box that you just simply don't, every single one is different and beautiful in their way. So I think it's important to just follow what you think is right and think of what you want to achieve in life and just go for it. Because, it's important to make your own way and make it meaningful rather than thinking of what I didn't have or what I could have gotten but I couldn't.
And that expression or that sentence, I guess, from Kwame Anthony Appiah, that can apply to you and it can apply to me and it can apply to a young Syrian girl who's a refugee, and it can apply to your mum, and it can apply to everyone, which I think is the beauty of it. It's very universal and everyone has different physical environmental conditions, but we can all try to do something. Can you give me any insight what it was like to work with Syrian refugee children? Because I've known you for a while, but I had no idea about that. I didn't even know that program was going on. Or just, I want to know what it was like a little bit, I think.
So during winter vacation in 2000, I think it was 21, I was matched with 2 Syrian girls living in Turkey. And I was an English teacher. And every week for 2 months, and we had class for 2 hours every session. I would make these like programs and PPTs and crossword puzzle games for those girls and teach English really in a comfortable way rather than strictly teaching grammar, that kind of stuff. We just kind of really had fun. And
how old were they roughly?
They were one was 9 and one was 11.
Okay.
Yeah, so I actually really don't I'm not very familiar with kids because it's really kind of uncomfortable to like make them laugh, but I really had fun because they were just like kids who just loved their friends and loved their teacher, and they just loved the opportunity that they could learn English with a young girl teacher from South Korea. So rather than, I was actually kind of worried that I might say something wrong and it might hurt them because they are from Syria and they, have gone through violence. But I think that was the perception that I had, and that was kind of wrong because I think it's important to just do what you can provide them with. And in my case, it was just support, love, and, English education. And I just kind of concentrated in providing what I could rather than, worrying their traumas and about that.
Yeah, just be a person with them. Yeah, that's all you need to do sometimes. Did they know anything about South Korea? This might seem like a stupid question, but did they were they aware in the world what South Korea was? Because I think when I was 9, if somebody asked me where Syria was, I wouldn't know. And so did they have any concept of it? Or?
No, because they were so young. And, Korea is such a small country in Asia to them. So they didn't know anything about Korea. And they were kind of young to know, to, talk about K-pop and all that stuff. So,
But they know about Korea now.
Yeah.
I'm sure they will remember it, and maybe one day they will pass on the help that they got, just like you did. Do you think that universities in South Korea offered that? Like, do you? I guess just in terms of your social work and what you've been doing, is it there? Is it easy to find? Because I don't know, if I do scroll down my Insta feed and I see students from both of the universities, I'm always surprised to see, wow, this person's doing this and this person's doing this, and I do see it. Do you think that universities here do offer those opportunities to help people, or is it that you're just very good at finding them?
Well, in my case, I think I'm just good at finding them because, I think there could be more programs and, more long and sustainable programs that would, help people in need. And that would also help the Korean students because they would have more opportunities to volunteer. So, of course, there are a lot of institutes where you can go volunteering overseas, but I think it's really rather than focusing on, I went to Vietnam and did this, I think it's more important to just find what you can do, and rather than trying to increase your specs around that kind of stuff. And it's just, I think, doing it more purely, I think it's important. Because a lot of students, just use volunteers as their specs. So
spec up, or sometimes it looks good for social media. I was reading about this theory called what was it called? Poverty porn. I think this was related to photos of Audrey Hepburn and the First Lady and things like this, that if you position yourself in these photos, that's a whole other conversation I don't particularly want to get into, but that it can be used by some people to make themselves look good. But I definitely don't get that impression from you. It's more doing it genuinely rather than doing it to look good. I don't know if we should. Yeah, actually, shall we talk about Itaewon just very briefly? Because a lot of the talk, I guess, around the tragedy in Itaewon has been about the psychological effects on young people. I keep reading it, this generation that will have gone through the Seoul tragedy, the Itaewon, and then the COVID-19 pandemic, these kind of events or incidents that have disproportionately affected young people in a short period of time and in such large numbers, and that feel so preventable, I guess. What was your take on the tragedy in Itaewon? Obviously, it was a heartbreaking thing, and I really didn't enjoy seeing the videos that were put all over social media. But how did that kind of thing affect you as a young South Korean woman?
It kind of really scared me that an incident, which seemed it could be, clearly prevented, happened in Korea. I mean, in 2022, who would imagine being, crushed to death, especially in Seoul? So, but what I found really sad was that a lot of people, mocked those who were dead because they said that they were killed participating, in a Western festival, and they were mocked like that. And however, I kind of feel that it was just not you, and it was just not me, because we just could have gone to Itaewon randomly that day just to relieve my stress and meet friends. And due to the people, pushing, I may have been pushed into that district. However, I just happened to be busy that day, and I slept in, and it wasn't me. So I kind of feel that it was usually the 20s who were sacrificed, and a lot of different generations are mocking them due to, because they are unable to understand how, socializing in the modern day looks like, or how the early 20s socialize or play.
Yeah, there, but for the grace of God go I. Because I've been to Itaewon many times on Halloween and things like that, and I know exactly how you feel. Does it... So with this, it feels very scary, and there needs to be the right response. And sometimes people are using it, criticizing it, politicizing it. Is there a kind of psychological toll? Is there a tragedy that comes from this? Or does it? How does the nation move on from this sometimes? Because I feel like sometimes the Seoul is still there. There's still that. There's still the yellow ribbons. There's still the candles, and another one. It feels like this really big, a boulder on the shoulders sometimes. And I wonder if South Korea is, of course, it is strong enough to hold it up, and the people are able to bear it. But it feels like such an emotional weight on people sometimes.
So after tragedies happen, of course there are measures taken. For example, a few days earlier I was in Chungmuro, and it's that transfer line, so a lot of people go by, especially at 6 p.m. when everyone's trying to go home, and there were these people managing for safety issues, and there were a lot of people doing that. So I think after a tragedy happens, the society kind of moves to a positive way and tries to prevent it. But I still feel that those tragedies keep on happening, and of course it's just unable to stop them. But I kind of feel that we need to, take more measures in order to change the society in, a better way and more robust way, in order not to do that again.
I think it's a part of human nature that, a sad part of human nature, that we're not very proactive. It's very hard to stop these things happening. As soon as they happen, then people will go and put all of these policies and effects and things in. But until a disaster happens, not many people are interested. It's hard to get that, I think, which is very sad. Which is very, very sad, yeah. I've said it before, but even when South Korea are succeeding in things, I feel very happy for the country. But when there's a tragedy for South Korea, then I feel really close to the country. I don't know why, but it really brings me like that. If we bring this towards, I guess, the final straight, Seoyeon, one of the questions I wanted to ask you is that, are there any things that people get wrong about Korea? So maybe it's foreigners like me or people in the media. You might see things online, and because now a lot of people do talk about Korea, it's become a thing, whereas it wasn't before. Is there anything that you've seen like, no, that's not right, no, you don't get it, you're just not Korean enough there to get this? Is there anything that people get wrong, do you think?
I haven't actually kind of thought of that, because when people, have certain perceptions about Koreans, I kind of tend to just, 그럴 수 있지, all that stuff. But yeah, so for example, what should I say? Maybe all that, Han stuff. Yeah, it's not a very common thing to have in the modern Korean society, but every foreigner kind of tries to understand that Han, and they think that we have Han every day. And
Han for breakfast.
Yeah, that kind of comes around when you see those Gyeongbokgung and old palaces. Of course, it's really nice to see, but in our daily lives, I don't think we have that anymore.
But you do have nunchi.
Yeah.
Nunchi is there because people will use these han and nunchi and tong, sometimes hung, to explain Squid Game and Parasite. They will often do that, or to explain BTS or Blackpink or things. I see that a lot. So in your take, there's lots of nunchi here, but han is like...
Yeah, of course we have like tong because, you know...
What's tong?
Our... That's very difficult. I think it's like this. We always have this like Korean way of saying hi. So if we see a person in a very long time, we say, "Oh, no," or we say that 언제 밥 한번 먹자, and it's always related to that, you know, 밥. And when you seem tired, people say, "Oh, 밥은 먹었어?" You know, that kind of stuff. I think that's related to Tong because Korea was really poor in the past, and you know they couldn't afford to have proper meals. So I think that's where it came from.
That connection. When I first came, people are always asking me, 데뷔 밥 먹었니? 밥 먹었어? And I was just like, yeah, I had a sandwich, I had donkas. Why do you keep asking about my food? I didn't get it. I thought they were just generally curious about, am I getting fat or something? Because they would also say that a lot. David, you look tired. David, you look fat. But yeah, there is that focus on food here, isn't it? That eating together and have you eaten and let's eat together sometime.
And also recently I saw this article which was... I think it was an American YouTuber, and they were a couple, and they were traveling in Korea, and they had their dog in their bag, and 할머니 gave 10,000won to that dog.
To the dog?
Yeah. And the couple was like, oh my gosh, do we look like homeless? Do they think that we are poor? But it wasn't that. It was just like 할머니's giving 용돈 to, you know, cute dogs and you know their little grandsons and granddaughters. It was that rather than, you know, them looking poor. Yeah.
People do that to my kids sometimes. If we take them out, like they'll come up and give them sweets or give them things. I tell you what, the Kim Yong Lam Bop killed so much of that for me. At university and stuff, I used to get so many like coffees and apples and sweets, and then just one law was passed and then boom, nothing. I still try to give like orange juices or stuff to the setak ajoshi, the people around me. I kind of like that because it's not giving money, or it's just, hey, it's a hot day, have a drink. I kind of like that culture. I'm sad that it's gone a lot. I want to ask you now, because sometimes you're a teacher, sometimes you teach people.
Yeah.
You've done Suneung 3 times. You keep saying you failed it. You didn't fail it. You just didn't get the score that you wanted.
Yeah.
So, but you'll probably be reluctant to answer this because you would see yourself as so young. But what advice do you have for other young students or people either going through university or they're trying to go through their own point of life or things like that? What have you learned? What advice would you give to young people that are trying to get into university or trying to take the next step, trying to help people?
Well, you know, a lot of friends say that, Seoyeon is so cutting. She lives a life, and she's so perfect, and she does this, and she does this, and she's so cool. And I'm kind of like, oh, because my life isn't that perfect, and you know, it's really tiring every day to do the things that I want to do. But I think I don't do that because it's required by the society or to show it on Instagram. I'm just making something out, as Appiah said, something out of what I have now and making it meaningful and, you know, doing things and challenging things for the things I want to achieve for the future. And I think it's really important to do that because, you know, if you only think about the past or if you only think about the present, you won't be able to, you know, have a long-term goal. And I really want to to tell the students who are going to through KSAT, whenever they start KSAT, I say that you should have a goal, a university that you want to go, or a study that you want to do, rather than just merely thinking, oh, I'm going to go to a good university, because that isn't going to make you strive for what you want.
Katseng, the God life, right?
Yeah.
That's the I keep hearing about katseng. You don't use social media much, do you?
Yeah.
Or do you use it secretly? Do you have like 5? Because I know everyone's different, but I get the impression that you don't use it a lot.
Yeah, I kind of don't use it a lot, and of course, like I have like secret account. I have a secret account, but it's usually for like the dumb things I do in life. Me lying down on library, not doing work, sleeping in the library when I'm supposed to do work. Yeah, it's just like me doing stupid things, and I really enjoy that. Only sharing it with my close friends.
I've noticed that's quite a big thing here. I can't remember whether it's like bouquet or something like that, or it's just people having various accounts, but that definitely seems to be a thing here that I've noticed.
Yeah, so like using bouquet, most people, write their emotions really frankly, or they do goofy stuff.
I think there should be studies into bouquets a bit more. I think. How much do you sleep? I'm curious about this because I reckon you're either going to say 12 hours or 4.
No. Yeah.
Do you sleep a lot? Do you get enough sleep?
These days I like sleep like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
Because it's application season. Yeah. But after I finish this, I'm going to sleep a lot, and start English tutoring again, and like learn art, drawing, and do some hobbies that I would like to do.
You sleep about the same as me, I think, but your work is always done as well. I know it's like first, there it is, bang, bang. Are you a good teacher?
Well,
You want to start English teaching again? Are you a good 선생님?
When I've done English tutoring since I was a freshman, and I did it until I was a junior, and then I stopped because I had so much coming up in life. But yeah, I think I'm pretty good because I've taught more than I think more than 10 students for the past few years. Yeah. And I've made quite a lot of money out of it, so yeah, I think it was nice not needing to depend on my parents for pocket money.
Yeah, congratulations! You can get a lot of money for doing that. Excellent. Is there anything before we go to the last question? Is there anything we've missed, Seoyeon? Is there anything that we didn't talk about or that you wanted to say, or? We've done quite a lot, to be fair. We've done social minorities, feminism, plants, Leeds 시절.
I think we did most of it.
I think we did. If there's nothing that you're feeling like a쉬워 about, then the last question, and this is a question that I've asked to pop stars and politicians, but I'll ask it to you as well. The question is, as humans on this planet, what should we be doing with our time here? How can we give value to our life and the lives of other people? Jeon Seoyeon, what is the meaning of life?
It's a really difficult question.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? But there it is.
Yeah, obviously, I think I'm in love with Appiah. Yeah, so I think it's just important to not blame the outside environment and what you have. And it's just important to make something out of what you have. And, if you have the opportunity, I think it's also important to give out the things that you can. Yeah, I think that's what we should do in life. rather than, complaining or being selfish.
Your answers remind me that I should always read, even when I'm tired, because some of your answers today have been based on, well, perhaps been based on what I've been reading, and then I've kind of shared with you, and that comes from the act of reading. So it reminds me, Seoyeon, that I need to keep reading, and when I stop reading, then I'm not doing it right.
Yeah. Also, my mother was really into Buddhism. And my family really likes Buddhism, and they really believe in it. And I think life is about not, trying to achieve everything. Rather, it's just like flowing and just doing what you have in front of you. Of course, it's important to have goals, but not being selfish about that. And then I think opportunities just maybe come to you, and it's just a natural thing, I think.
Don't be too attached to things, and be willing to let things go. Don't have a big ego, and there's lots of value in the Buddhists. We have lots of Buddhists in our family. And I like the songs. I like the happiness that they have.
Yeah. So one day you will be in the place, in the time where you just need to be.
Beautiful way to end it. Thank you.
Thank you.